welcome back to my channel. My name is Tina and today is time for another one of my makeup and murder mystery series. If you enjoy makeup and murder, then you're gonna love this series that I have. Today we're gonna be talking about Magdalena Solis. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be screwing up names all over the place. This crime took place in Mexico and has to do with Aztec gods. Get ready to learn about the blood priestess. I'm gonna be doing like a sun-inspired sort of Mexican type look. Reminds me of Mexico anyways. If you wanna see how that turns out and hear about this fascinating cult and the murderess behind it, let's get going. So Magdalena was born in Mexico, probably somewhere near Monterrey, Mexico. I'm not positive. Her birth date is between the 30s and 40s. Don't have a lot of information on her past. We do know that it was extremely dysfunctional. The foundations I'm going to be using is Milani and Tarte Shape Tape. I'm going to be using the Thank Me Later eye primer and face primer, Smashbox under eye primer, and for concealer I will be using Tarte Shape Tape and ColourPop. So back to Magdalena. She was in Mexico, born into a very dysfunctional family. They prostituted her out, probably starting at a really young age. Her brother was her pimp, so she didn't have a great life, and her prospects as she was growing older were pretty much more of the same: excruciating poverty and prostitution. While that's going on, the Hernandez brothers, Santos and Catonis, in 1963 had started a scam in this tiny little village of about 50 people in Yerba Bueno, I think. I'm not positive. It is a very tiny little town in Mexico. If you're from there or know the area, I apologize. They're in this little tiny village, and it's a very poor village full of mostly uneducated and illiterate people. That's what I read online. I am not calling them unintelligent at all. You have to be pretty smart to make a living and keep everybody alive in those kind of areas. It left them open to these brothers who went there, and they started a cult. They said that in the caves surrounding the village, that they were the prophets for these Incan gods that lived in those caves. They must have done a few things to convince the people there that they were. They're basically using them for sex orgies and to basically be waited on hand and foot and things like that. And they keep telling them, oh, there's riches in these caves. They told us so. You know, you just have to be patient. The goddess is coming, or the god is coming. But they kept this going for months. Eventually the villagers were like, this ain't working for us. We're not noticing anything's getting better. We haven't found any gold. And these people are just abusing us. The brothers decide, instead of to just skip town, this is too good of a deal to pass up. So they head into Monterrey, Mexico, and they find Magdalena and her brother and convince them to pose as Incan gods and come back to this tiny town and do this scam with them. Now Magdalena has no real prospects for her future or anything, and her brother obviously has quite a lot of control over her. They decide to go with it. I'm just using the e.l.f. brow pencil. You know, they agree to go perpetuate this scam with these brothers on this poor village. The brothers, you know, they're really good con artists, so okay, how can we convince these people that these are Incan gods or goddesses? And what they come up with is essentially a fireworks and light show that magicians use. So they distract the villagers, throw down some smoke bombs and stuff, light the place up a bit. Suddenly she appears out of nowhere that these villagers can see. And it's unlikely many, if any of them, had seen anything like this before. So of course they're instantly convinced that this is a goddess. So they start up with the sex parties and orgies again, and just using people as sex slaves and keeping them in the caves and stuff, and basically just living off these people however they can to whatever makes them happy. It's not a good situation. A couple villagers start catching on to the fact that this probably isn't true. The first couple who decide that they're leaving and they want no more part of this, they don't want to be used and abused by these people, so they are getting ready to leave. They realize their scam will be up if these villagers leave, so they hold a sacrifice ritual and lynch them. At this point, Magdalena pretty much takes over the whole entire thing. She's now got power and control. She's literally living a life she's never lived before, where she's not having to be the one doing what she's told. Instead, she gets to tell other people what they're doing. Her life isn't quite so hard scrabble as it was, although I can't imagine living in a cave is like luxurious. I'm just gonna sweep through it with some Brow Gal gel. They've graduated from just abusing these people and stuff and sexually abusing them and taking advantage of them to outright killing them. People don't generally step back from that, they move forward. So to do my eye look, I'm going to be using a couple different palettes. The ColourPop My Little Pony palette is like that. The It's Fire Trio, which looks like that. Just a tiny bit out of my Ebates palette from Smashbox, the ColourPop palette, and I'm going to start with Butterscotch. So a couple more weeks go by, more people are becoming discontented, so she starts having these rituals that she tells them are blood rituals. Of course, they involve killing people, and of course, they're always killing the dissenters, because that's how these things work. I mean, that does two things. It gives the people a ritual to follow, and it keeps people in line. So now I'm going to use Applejack and start building that up in my outer corner. So they're really getting into this. So she starts calling herself, I think it's Katalakua, Aztec god. I'll put the name up. You can decide for yourself what this says. The mother of the sun, the stars, and the moon. So what she does is she starts having these rituals saying they're what give her eternal life, where she's killing these villagers, and they're sort of taking from the Aztecs and their beliefs, and they start ripping the heart out of people, bleeding them into goblets with chicken blood and drugs and things in them. And she tells everybody this is the elixir of life and what keeps her young forever. Taking a little bit of my Ablaze palette, and I'm just taking that kind of pinky one right there, reddish one. So I'm just gonna do my outer V with that. Now they've got these full-on sacrifices going of what she's fully in charge of. She's getting drugs and her day-to-day needs met. And in general, she's thinking her life's pretty good compared to where it was, and so what if I have to kill a few people to keep this going? In May of 1963, a boy named Sebastian Gutierrez, he's just out hiking, exploring and stuff, and he comes across these caves, and he hears this noise coming from these caves, so he goes to check that out. Oh, he's like 15, 14, and he goes into the cave, and he witnesses them torturing and killing someone on one of these rituals, and freaks out and runs the 15 miles to the nearest police station. You know, breaks into their office just completely freaked out and sweating and a mess, and tells the officers what's going on. And they don't really believe him. You know, who is going to believe a 15-year-old that there's some sort of satanic ritual going on in these caves? So I'm going to take this bright yellow from the It's Fire and pixie dust, and I'm going to put that across my lid. One of the officers decides, well, alright, he's so freaked out, I'll go back with him and prove that there's nothing going on here. And they go off and then disappear and never come back. When they don't show back up in a few days, the police department there goes, okay, we have a problem. I'm going to use a little bit of my NYX glitter glue and put that right in the center just to pop this up a little bit more. They call in the Mexican military and go check it out. When they get there, a firefight ensues. The Hernandez brothers are killed, as are several villagers who believe that they're protecting their goddess. They find the body of Sebastian and Officer Martinez, who's had his heart ripped out of his chest. So, of course, that's pretty much all the proof anybody needs that this has been going on. They convict her, but they only managed to convict her on Officer Gutierrez's murder because the townspeople and the villagers won't believe that she was a scam. They're convinced that she's a real goddess, and it took years for them to get over that belief. If you ever go to prison, don't go to a Mexican prison. They're not nice. So they end up taking several villagers to jail because they were shooting at them, and they free this village of these people, but it's still kind of a mess for a while because they believe in this woman. Okay, so now I'm going to take Applejack and Skylander, start doing my under eye area. So how does a simple, uneducated, and a prostitute her entire life, how does she become one of the most infamous serial killers in Mexico? We've discussed a lot on here. Early childhood abuse can lead to people becoming like this. So I'm going to use my NYX Vivid Bright in this super bright pink and try to do a tight line. I hate the little brush on this. I'm going to use my full exposure from Smashbox and then double decker lashes from Butter London. So we know that these things can happen when you have families that are messed up and super abusive. And we know that people who have sexual fantasies that run towards sadistic fantasies are much more likely to act out and use sadomasochism. And I suspect that all those years of her being forced to be a prostitute probably brought up quite a bit of resentment and anger and fantasies. So when they had this all set up basically for her to walk into and take over, and for somebody who had never had any power at all of any kind, be a heady combination where they're just unwilling to give it up regardless of the cost. Okay, this is where we go into psychoanalyzing the situation and whether, what I think happened here, because we have very little information on her and her home life. I can only go off the fact that she was prostituted out by her brother and that the socioeconomic status of her and her family was very, very low. And when you're in that situation, it can be very easy once you get out of it and a taste of something else to be unwilling to let that go for any cost. I think the fact that they found her and her brother high as a kite in a farmhouse where they had tried to escape to is very telling. So now I'm going to use my Juvias Place blush palette. I'm going to use Lena. I rarely use that color. And then to top that, I'm going to use Sola. And I'm just going to pop on a little bit of bronzer because this pink pale look is leaving me kind of washed out looking. I'm going to powder everything with my Too Faced pressed powder. For highlight, I'm going to use my Smashbox Rose Gold highlight. On my very inner corner, I'm going to use my Pacifica Rainbow Crystals drops. And for lipstick, I'm going to use my Colored Rain. I believe this is in Cafe. So how did this happen? How did this poor prostitute girl, woman, become a cult leader in the middle of nowhere, killing people? If this series of events hadn't happened, odds are she never would have become that. However, she probably already was a sadist and drew pleasure from other people's, specifically men probably, humiliation and hurt. I suspect that just because of the life she had and then what happened afterwards with her and how far these games with her went. I think there was a lot of anger and resentment in her for her poor station in life and what she was born into, and trying to claw her way out of that and never succeeding, and then being given this opportunity with these caveats. And once you think that that is what you have to do to be able to stay there, you're gonna do it. You're going to do what you need to do to protect yourself. There has to be a part of her that was perfectly okay with killing people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have. Otherwise, she wouldn't have ordered these murders. And these murders didn't happen before she got there. It is beyond probable from everything everybody said that she was the person who said, no, we're killing the people who try to leave. Because once again, she got this power and she wasn't letting it go. And it did not matter what morals or whatever she had to break. And some people are twisted like that. And then you give them a little bit of power and it twists it more, and especially in a situation like this. And it just leads to this overwhelming thing within themselves that allows themselves to get away with it. They justify everything they did. I guarantee you she justified all of her actions. That she didn't have a choice and she mitigated and she did everything to get out of it, because that is how this situation goes with people like that. They don't even stop to think what they're doing. Well, they do, but only insofar as it hurts themselves, right? So the only person they care about is them. The only needs they care about are theirs. Maybe their families, if they have children or something. She was already kind of a twisted person. She was in this situation that wasn't good. She grew up in a situation that wasn't good, in absolute poverty. And when she got even a small taste, and it couldn't have been a very big one, of power, control, and money, man, that was all it took for her to go just hog wild with it and turn into this awful monster. Unfortunately, that's how monsters are born. And pretty normal everyday decisions can lead up to this type of thing, because there had to be a lot of decisions along the way to get there. I don't justify people who turn out like this at all. They made their choice, and their choice was their wants, needs, and desires were more important than anybody else's, including their life. Stop and think about that for a second, because that's the real monsters of the world, how generally they're born. Very few people are actually born bad. Very few. There are some, but they're very rare. More often than not, it's people like this. People like Magdalena. Let me know what you thought of my look and today's makeup and murder mystery. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!